G'day everybody, welcome back to the channel. I hope you had an awesome day. I hope you smiled today or made somebody else smile, because smiles are friggin' awesome. Now, I am smiling because Johnny Depp is finally getting to tell the truth, which is of course his side of the story between him and ex-wife Amber Heard. But the truth is being told right now live to the world via the court case in Fairfax County, Virginia. But what I wanted to do is just preface this video with saying this: that Johnny Depp has been a victim of media bias and a false narrative for years now, since 2016 when Amber first came out with these false allegations of domestic violence. So while it's fantastic to see that the world is getting to hear the truth and seeing the actual evidence behind the case live through the court feed, it's really important to note it and call out that some of the media outlets are still extremely biased against Johnny Depp. Case in point, 60 Minutes Australia, which I'm ashamed to say is my home country, did a segment covering Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Now, I say Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, but really it was just talking about Johnny. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take you through that video piece by piece and call out all of the BS along the way. So if you're with me, that's great. Let's get into this and see what kind of bullshit they're spreading about Johnny Depp. And as always, let me know along the way what your thoughts are down in that comment section below. Here we go.
If ever proof was needed that when two stars collide, there's an almighty explosion, just look at the court case of Johnny Depp versus his former wife, Amber Heard. After only a few days, the trial is already a blockbuster, and the critics are raving, mostly in disbelief. Why is the pair exposing the grubby, and I warn, very grubby details of their failed marriage?
Pause. Okay, first thing off the bat. Johnny is not exposing their failed marriage. He's not trying to expose their dirty laundry. In fact, he wanted this to stay private. What is happening is that Johnny is exposing Amber Heard for the lying, hoax-creating gold digger that she is. That is what we're doing here in Virginia. So asking that question tells me right off the bat that you haven't done any research on this 60 Minutes. Anyway, let's continue.
Well, Johnny claims his career was destroyed after he was defamed in a newspaper article Amber wrote about domestic violence. Now he's demanding millions in damages. Amber, not surprisingly, is countersuing for millions more. But the truth is, in this Star War, they'll both pay dearly.
Your next witness?
Your Honor, we call Mr. John C. Depp.
Who needs to watch a Hollywood drama when you can just tune in to the daily vaudeville of the Fairfax County Courthouse in Virginia? Even in their wildest dreams, Tinseltown scriptwriters couldn't come up with lines quite like this.
Amber will testify about how Johnny would get so drunk and so drugged out that he would vomit all over himself and worse, lose control of his bowels. She would clean him up.
It really is very clear this is...
Okay, so I just got a few points to mention right now because it's only the first, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute, and we've already got a whole bunch of ridiculousness. So I just want to mention there, he talked about defamation, and the op-ed was released in 2018, in December 2018, right? And a couple of days after that, he was fired from Pirates of the Caribbean by Disney. So why on earth would he be bringing this? That's why, because her statement in the Washington Post op-ed directly caused him to lose work. And that was actually confirmed this week in the trial in Virginia by his former talent agent, Christian Carino. Also, Johnny has already paid dearly. He said both sides here will pay dearly. Johnny's already paid. He's paid dearly, not just in a financial sense, but in an emotional sense, of course, with his time with Amber in the relationship, but following her accusations, with his family, with his career, with everything surrounding him, he has paid very dearly already. So to say that he hasn't is very disingenuous. And what I want to point out as well is we see this clip right here that they've inserted. First of all, a clip of Johnny appearing to be drunk. But what that really is was when he was explaining something that happened with his mother, and he was actually portraying his mother. He wasn't portraying himself. He wasn't being drunk or pretending to be drunk or something like that. But here, 60 Minutes show their bias by inserting that clip to make the audience and their viewers think, well, obviously Johnny's just wacky or he's drunk or he's crazy or something like that. So right off the bat, we have those ones. And of course, Elaine talking about drugs and alcohol and things like that, you'll see throughout this clip, throughout this segment, that they try and portray Johnny Depp, much like Amber's legal team, as a drunk and drug addict. But it's very disingenuous because this is Elaine's opening here, and she's going to bring up the SA allegations in a moment, which, of course, are completely unfounded, along with the rest of Amber Heard's lies.
It's all unscripted, particularly when the Pirates of the Caribbean star himself takes the stand.
Good afternoon, Mr. Depp.
Good afternoon.
Can you please tell the jury why you're here today?
And with evidence like this,
yes.
the case could take quite a while.
About 6 years ago, Ms. Heard made some quite heinous and disturbing, brought these disturbing criminal acts against me that were not based in any species of truth.
The testimony lurches from disturbing to downright bizarre.
And you would sometimes drink whiskey in the mornings too, right? During this time period.
Isn't happy hour any time?
Right, so let me pause here. So what they've done so far is they've played a clip of Johnny explaining a little bit, just a tiny little bit of what he's doing there and why he has brought this case against Amber Heard for defamation. But what they also did was imply, you heard the host there imply that, oh my gosh, how silly is Johnny? He can't even answer, and it's going to take so long with evidence like his because of his consideration that he takes and the time that he takes to answer in a way that is meaningful. So he's being mocked for that, of course, already. And then we also had the clip there of Johnny Depp saying that happy hours anytime. Now, you've got to put this into context, which they did not, of course. They didn't put it into context because Johnny actually was being asked every 10 seconds about drugs and alcohol and drugs because Amber Heard has no case to actually fight against this charge from Johnny Depp, or this case from Johnny Depp for defamation. She has no case. So therefore, her lawyers continue to throw out these allegations that he's a drunk and that he's a drug addict for all kinds of illicit drugs. So when he gives this response here, it's disingenuous to show it in just this context without the entire context surrounding it, because he's been asked at this point over and over and over about drinking and about drugs and all those sorts of things. So very disingenuous indeed.
What's extraordinary when you hear all of this is that the whole reason Johnny Depp launched this court action is because he's trying to improve his reputation.
Lies build upon lies and build upon lies.
Is the sad reality that, Johnny Depp's reputation is now so damaged that in some ways he has nothing to lose by trying to swing the bat and have another crack at this case?
Yes, I think that's a legitimate strategy. I've got nothing left to lose. I've found a jurisdiction that will allow me to take Amber Heard to court one more time, and I'm going to have a crack at it.
Pause. Okay. Take Amber Heard to court one more time. In the UK trial, which he's referring to there, Johnny Depp did not take Amber Heard to court. He absolutely did not. His court case was against NGN, so the Sun newspaper, and Dan Wooten. It was not against Amber Heard. And trying to get this defamation case pushed forward is not a case of him shopping around for different places that he can try and sue Amber Heard. The Washington Post op-ed in which she falsely accused him of being a person who committed domestic violence against her is based in Washington. And that's where, in Virginia. And this is where the trial is happening, in Virginia. So, of course, it makes sense. He's not shopping around. And I just want to add this, that the UK trial ended in 2020. This lawsuit in Virginia was put forward in 2019, early 2019, well before the UK verdict. So to say that he failed in the UK and is now going to try in the US just to kind of throw things around and see what sticks is very, very disingenuous. And actually, it pisses me off because the reason that Johnny Depp has brought this defamation case is to clear his name that has been so horribly smeared by Amber Heard and all of her lies.
Because otherwise, what do I do? Retire, essentially, in disgrace, going to my grave, as he said, carrying these allegations of violent abuse, which he says he thinks he knows aren't true.
Quick pause. He knows they're true because it's all based on evidence. And he knows he's telling the truth because nothing happened. He did nothing to Amber. In fact, it was the reverse, but he did nothing to Amber and he has the evidence to back it up. That's the important part.
When he became an investigative reporter, Nick Wallace never expected to become an expert on the rise and fall of Johnny Depp. He covered the Hollywood star's first attempt at defamation when he sued the Sun newspaper in the UK 2 years ago. And now he's in the US as Depp sues for libel again, this time taking on his former lover.
And on my side of the bed, was human fecal matter.
The result in that first case in London, how did that pan out?
The judge in the case, who is a renowned expert on libel, looked at all the evidence and decided that, he joined up the dots and decided that on the balance of evidence, it was substantially true that Johnny Depp was a wife beater. So it didn't go that well for him.
Give me a break, Nick. Give me a bloody break with this rubbish. The judge in the UK, now, okay, the UK verdict did not go in Johnny Depp's favor, but there's a couple of things that we need to consider here. So first of all, just a little nitpick from me. It's not libel in Virginia, it's defamation per se. And that's been confirmed by some some lawyers who know far better than I do. It's not libel, it's defamation per se. Secondly, Nick Wallace wants to say that the UK trial had all of this evidence and the judge was an expert and all of these things. But like I mentioned previously, Amber Heard was not a party to the UK trial. And Judge Penny, who is the presiding judge over the Virginia case, said in some of her court documents that Johnny Depp did not get a full and fair trial in the UK because Amber Heard was not a party to that trial, meaning that Johnny Depp did not have the capability and was not allowed to go and do discovery and obtain evidence and documentation from Amber Heard because she was simply a witness. She was not a party to that trial. So to say that the UK trial was full and fair and that a decision was reached based on all of the evidence is actually a complete lie. And I would expect Nick Wallace, who did cover the UK trial, to know far better than this because he was actually there in the courtroom.
So a resounding defeat for Johnny Depp first time around in London. Why then is he done with?
Yeah, resounding. I mean, really, really resounding. I mean, the judge's verdict was damning on Johnny Depp.
So if he's so thoroughly defeated in the UK, why then double down in the US and go through it all again?
If Johnny Depp loses this trial, his career is toast. I mean, it's not in that good shape anyway. And this is the last throw of the dice. He's trying to persuade some good American citizens in Fairfax County, Virginia, that actually everything he's been saying all along is right. But there is now a body of public opinion, evidence, high court rulings in London that paint him as someone capable of physical violence against his spouse.
Rightio. So let's get into that a little bit. What exactly, Nick Wallace, what exactly is public opinion evidence? That seems a little counterintuitive to me. Public opinion evidence. So nothing, you mean basically just what people say. I need to just point that out. Did anyone else pick that up? Public opinion evidence. No, Nick, that is not evidence. And you know what? It's saying that the UK trial, again, the High Court gave this damning evidence. They did not. They said, the Sun said, and Dan Wooten said in that case that they had overwhelming evidence, yet they never, ever presented it. Absolutely ridiculous statement to make. Can you believe that shit? Public opinion evidence. Never heard of such ridiculousness.
Get in. Blurred vision, no balance, numb tongue. The mind recoils in horror.
This time, Johnny's got it in for Amber because she wrote an article for the Washington Post about domestic violence. Although Depp wasn't named, he took it personally.
If drinking doesn't get you into trouble,
How does anybody drink 161 miniatures? Are they not complimentary?
But it wasn't always.
All right. So another couple of things again, and I'm sorry I have to keep stopping, but there is just so much crap in this 60 Minutes Australia segment. So he mentioned there, oh, Johnny Depp, and you listen to the way that they say these things and the words that they use. When he says he's going after Amber for an op-ed that she wrote in which he took personally. Now, wouldn't you bloody take it personally, Mr. Presenter? Wouldn't you take it personally if somebody made false accusations against you? And he said the words, he believes it was about him, as in Johnny Depp believes the op-ed was about him. Well, guess what? The ACLU, who reached out to Amber to get her to be an ambassador, to get her to write that article in the Washington Post, this week in court confirmed that it was about Johnny Depp.
Ms. Heard's advisors initially revised the draft to remove any reference to Ms. Heard's marriage or divorce?
I recall a number of email communications back and forth among ACLU personnel and Ms. Heard's attorneys where they were suggesting edits to the op-ed relating to matters covered in the NDA.
And then is it also true that there were some at the ACLU who expressed their belief that excising those references to her marriage and divorce from Johnny Depp made the op-ed less impactful, correct?
It is correct. That is correct.
But ultimately, based on those voices, Ms. Heard pushed to get that excised material back into the op-ed so it could be more impactful. True?
That's not my understanding. My understanding is that the language that wound up in the final op-ed piece was very different from the original language that Robin included in the op-ed after having spoken with Amber about her personal experiences.
And how was it different?
It did not refer directly to Ms. Heard's relationship with Johnny Depp.
Yeah. So how about doing a little research, 60 Minutes? How about doing just a couple of checks to make sure that what you're saying is actually factual? Because you know what? The ACLU themselves, the people who went after Amber Heard, engaged Amber Heard to write this article, said themselves in court this week that, yes, it was about Johnny Depp.
All-out war between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Their worlds collided on the set of the 2012 comedy drama, The Rum Diary.
Oh, God. Why did she have to help? Just when I was doing so good without her.
Their chemistry in the movie was palpable, and romance quickly blossomed off set.
I think there was something in the shower that was very real.
This spark that he said he felt was literally pure Hollywood. But he was also very much aware that he was almost twice her age, and he called himself Steve, and she called herself Slim after a Lauren Bacall and Humphrey Bogart movie in which he was that much older than Lauren Bacall. So they were aware of the age difference, but he said they had so much in common. They had this spark and they had this passionate love for each other, which developed into this tempestuous relationship, which slowly became progressively more and more toxic. And then, God, when it went toxic, I mean, it is proper dirty linen being washed in public. And to sit there and listen to it, it's not nice.
Suddenly, I'm just getting clobbered from behind. And
While cameras weren't allowed in the UK court proceedings, the game changer in this case in America is that every minute of evidence, every facial expression is being broadcast live around the world.
This is going to be like watching a movie, and people are not going to get enough of it. They're absolutely going to be glued to watching that coverage.
Okay, let me pause there. All right, so a few things. We noticed again that they inserted a clip of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas showing Johnny Depp appearing drunk, and in a few other movies where he's drinking alcohol. Again, they're pulling in this narrative, this false narrative that Johnny Depp is this big drunk and big drug addict and all of this stuff. So 60 Minutes themselves are falling in line with what Amber Heard and her legal team have been saying. and they've been just perpetuating it in here. Now, they didn't say anything. There was no voiceover when we saw those clips, but it's enough. They're trying to give everyone and their viewers and the audience the perception that Johnny Depp is in fact a drunk and is always drunk. So it's very, very disingenuous to do that. And it's a subtle thing to do, but in my eyes, not that subtle, because they put that straight in there. Now, the next point I want to make is that this Hollywood lawyer, this joker, says, oh, it's like a movie. It's not a freaking movie. It's Johnny Depp's life. It is Johnny Depp's life that has damaged his friendships, relationships with people, family, and of course, his career as well. So to sit there and say, oh, it's just like a movie. It's not a freaking movie. It is his life.
Hollywood lawyer and legal analyst Christopher Melcher is gobsmacked it even got to this point. Do you think there's just a fascination with these two? That it's almost like a car crash. You can't look away.
It is. And there's a bit of self-destructive behavior that we're seeing on both sides. And why have they allowed it to go this far? Why couldn't they just break up and go in peace and move forward? Why are we seeing a court case about a failed relationship?
They really...
Pause. Oh my gosh, this freaking guy, this Hollywood lawyer who, you know, I'm guessing 60 Minutes are bringing in to say is an expert. Did he just really say, why are they doing this in public? Why couldn't they just do it in private? Oh my gosh. Whew. Johnny Depp wanted to do this in private. In fact, they really did kind of break up in private, even though Amber Heard went to the press in 2016 and made false allegations against Johnny Depp. The ultimate divorce was private. And the thing is, Johnny Depp always wanted this to be private, yet Amber Heard continued in 2018. So from 2016 through to 2018, continued with her false allegations of domestic violence, saying that Johnny Depp assaulted her on 14 different occasions, including all of these elaborate incidents that she created. And so he's been defamed for a very, very long time. So to say, oh, just do this in private, do you know what? He's tried that before, and it's because of scumbags like you, 60 Minutes, that he can't do that, because everything that comes from that courtroom would be twisted and turned to make it look as though he was this big, bad guy, as if he's already guilty and that he's been made out to be something that he's not. And just in saying that, I want to make sure everyone watching this is reminded that Johnny Depp is the plaintiff in this case. He's not the defendant. He is the plaintiff. So I wanted to mention that as well. And I mean, this just shows as well that, they've got this expert lawyer on, hasn't even looked at the case. No one from 60 Minutes has actually looked at the evidence and the detail behind the case. Very frustrating.
There's a bit of the O.J. Simpson case about this one in terms of the public fascination.
This is a big trial in the amount of attention that it's getting. OJ had a lot of attention because there was a murder. There was 2 victims there. There was a lot of very complex evidence. This case is not that complicated.
What? Not that complicated? Dude, you have no bloody idea what you're talking about. Not complicated. Okay, so we've got 14 allegations of abuse from Amber Heard towards Johnny Depp. False allegations, I might add. We've got a defamation component to this. There's also a counterclaim from Amber Heard for defamation back towards Johnny Depp. There's charity donations involved. There's mental health issues involved. This is a very complicated case, and I think that this douchebag lawyer has not even had one little look at the trial or at the case in general. He knows nothing.
It's the people that are complicated, and we're getting to learn more about them.
I said, go ahead. Hit me.
In many ways, we're learning too much more about them.
Bam.
And worryingly for Johnny, new details of his bizarre lifestyle might now even lead to criminal charges right here in Australia.
Oh, really?
It is a taboo.
Okay, pause. Sorry, I'm pausing again because, once more, they inserted a clip there from the courtroom, and what they want it to appear like to the audience is that Johnny Depp is explaining how he hit Amber Heard. That's what they want you to think. But really what he's explaining there is how Amber Heard hit him. Johnny Depp is the victim in this trial, in this case. He is the victim. And that was him in that little clip explaining and describing to the jury how Amber Heard hit him twice on her birthday evening. And so, do you know what? 60 Minutes. have not yet put one thing in here, not one thing in this segment that's negative towards Amber Heard. Let's see how they go. Oh, and of course they throw the TMZ clip in there that we just saw. The TMZ clip that was released in 2016, edited to edit out the final part where Amber Heard picks the phone up again, smirks into the phone, and then goes after Johnny Depp. Because that's right, he didn't do anything to her. He tried to leave, and she followed him. She followed him. There's so many things about that bloody TMZ video. Why was she recording? Why wasn't she trying to console him, help him with whatever was going on? Clearly, yes, he was angry. Yes, he was banging some kitchen cupboards, which we've all done. But they wanted to paint it in this light that he was this big aggressor. So again, 60 Minutes fail and sticking to that old narrative that Johnny Depp is the bad guy, even though they didn't show the entire TMZ clip.
It is a horrendous thing, it is a criminal act in itself, then there will be lots and lots of people looking at this to see whether or not charges can be brought.
Oh my gosh, I've got to pause again. Okay, so they're talking about the SA allegations there that were brought up by Elaine in court, and we will hear some of that shortly, I feel. But as far as these criminal charges that Nick Wallace is talking about, that is insane. And what we've seen in the courtroom so far is that Amber Heard is the criminal. We've heard it from witnesses. We've heard it from doctors. We've heard it from people who know them very well. And we've heard it from Amber's own mouth. In the audio recordings that are publicly available, Amber Heard admits to hitting Johnny Depp, and Johnny Depp never admits to hitting Amber Heard.
When Hollywood heartthrob Johnny Depp came to Australia to film Pirates of the Caribbean in 2015, pandemonium ensued. With him was his stunning young wife, Amber Heard. They seemed a picture-perfect couple. But in a US court last week, Amber made bombshell new revelations that Johnny Depp sexually assaulted her while on the Gold Coast.
As you go through those 3 days of Australia, some pretty horrendous things happen to her. He rips off her nightgown. He has her jammed up against a bar. He has hurled bottles and bottles at her. He has dragged her across the floor on the broken bottles and the liquor. He has punched her. He has kicked her. He tells her he's going to kill her. He hates her. He's pounding at her, and then he penetrates her with a liquor bottle.
Absolutely ridiculous, and it's absolute bullshit. And you know what? I can tell you why. Because this week, last couple of weeks during the trial, we heard from doctors, we heard from a nurse, we heard from security personnel, we've heard from property managers saying that they saw during that time in Australia not a single injury on Amber Heard. Not one. Let's not forget that they said at the beginning of this segment that she was dragged through broken glass and she was, all of these things. She had all of these horrific injuries. Yet not one person out of the many people who were there in Australia witnessed a single injury to her whatsoever. So again, more lies, and 60 Minutes clearly not portraying any of the other side of the story here, which really, let's face it, is the truth. Amber's side is all bullshit and it's all lies. It's all fabricated to take down this man who essentially at the end was just tired and done and wanted to leave her, and she wouldn't have it.
That's the Johnny Depp that you're going to hear about in this case.
It is a horrendous thing. It is a criminal act in itself. But if the jury goes with Amber Heard and says, yes, you were also a victim of sexual violence, a violent sexual assault whilst in Australia, then there will be lots and lots of people looking at this to see whether or not charges can be brought.
Okay, Nick, well, what about Amber? What about charges being laid against Amber? Now, I get there's statutes of limitations and all of those sorts of things, but why not perjury, for example, because she went on the stand in the UK and told a whole lot of lies, and it's just come out this week. Oh, she didn't donate money to charity like she said she did. She said she donated $7 million, and the ACLU confirmed this week on the stand in court that they did not receive that money. So,
my question was actually a simple one. Did Ms. Heard ever agree to any schedule for the payment of the remainder of the $3.5 million donation?
I don't recall her having seeing anything where she agreed to.
So, who's actually done something criminally wrong here? Now, are you basing that, Nick, on those, that opinion evidence you talked about earlier? Because that's all you've got is opinion. And of course, Amber Heard's opinion in the op-ed was all based on lies. Absolutely ridiculous.
Nick Wallace has covered many of Johnny Depp's legal trials and tribulations. While it may seem bizarre that a couple from Hollywood is in a court on America's East Coast debating alleged violence and sexual assault incidents in Australia, he says there is a semi-logical explanation for it.
It is very strange that most of the protagonists are based in California, that the damage that was done to Johnny Depp's reputation was to the Hollywood producers in California who stopped calling him as a result of these allegations. But the judge in Virginia agreed that this Washington Post article was published on servers in the state of Virginia, which then went around the world. So she said, yes, there is jurisdiction in this state. You can sue for libel.
Is he effectively jurisdiction shopping? Just keep going around until he gets...
Oh, sake. Jurisdiction shopping? That's what you're reducing this to? Jurisdiction shopping? This guy's trying to vindicate himself and get rid of this stigma that has been hanging over his head for years that he is a wife beater, and you're calling it jurisdiction shopping? No, if it was jurisdiction shopping, then he would have been able to choose a whole lot of other places potentially. But legally, this is where it's allowed to be pursued because it was published in Virginia. So it's not this big kind of dramatic thing where Johnny's going around just seeing where everywhere he can try and sue Amber Heard. No, it was published in Virginia. And so, yes, of course, the judge, not Johnny Depp, the judge decided, yes, he can pursue this defamation case in Virginia. Again, we're seeing that mainstream narrative bias from 60 Minutes here. And again, it's bloody disgusting.
It's the result he wants.
He clearly believes in what he's doing. He clearly believes that he has never laid a finger on Amber Heard.
After you said, let's drown her before we burn her, Mr. Depp, you said, I will her burnt corpse afterwards to make sure she is dead. That's what you said that you would do after you burned her and after you drowned her. Did I read that right?
You certainly did, yes.
And you wrote that about the woman who would later become your wife.
Yes, I did.
Okay, so they've put that text in there. That's a text between him and Paul Bettany. He sent that text message and he never shied away from the fact that he sent it because it was a private text message to a friend. He did not say that to Amber Heard. He said that to a friend. Now, moving right along from that, what he went on to explain was that that text was basically word for word out of a Monty Python skit. And so he's just angry, he's furious because his wife has made these allegations against him. And so he sent that text message. And do you know what? Who hasn't? This is what a question I want to ask. Who hasn't sent a text message that's got some vulgar language, that's got some, ridiculous things in it? Who hasn't done that? But it doesn't mean that we mean it literally, does it? It doesn't mean that you or I would send that thinking, yeah, now we've said that text message, we're going to actually go and do it. So again, they play this clip, they insert this one clip, and it's all taken out of context, and they don't provide any clarification or any further context to what Johnny was actually saying.
The more times that he keeps going to the well, the more allegations come out as a result. And I mean, this goes beyond dirty laundry. I mean, if he is guilty of some of the things that Amber Heard is accusing him of, he should be under criminal investigation.
But no matter what the evidence, there is one group of people who are already convinced Johnny Depp is not a sinner. In their eyes, he'll always be a saint. There's a lot of Johnny Depp fans out there. Where do you rank?
I'm number one after 36 years, so I'm the number one fan.
How do you become number one?
Well, you start following him after Edward Scissorhands and follow the Hollywood vampires through Europe. Go to every movie premiere, every event, anything that Johnny does that you can get to. I love him, and like I said, it's been a long time. I love the person that he is. To me, he's an angel.
There are many words you could use to describe Yvonne de Boer. Perhaps devoted is the most fitting. Would you take a bullet for Johnny?
I would, and I've told him as much. And he looks at me like, no, don't think that. I said, no, if somebody were gonna hurt you, I would jump in front of you. He's that person that you wanna do that for him. So Johnny here, he's still wearing the ring and bracelet that I gave him.
Yvonne gets to the courthouse at 1 a.m. each morning, guarantee herself a prime seat right behind Johnny. And after the evidence she's heard so far, it's fair to say hell hath no fury like a woman whose idol has been scorned. Dare I ask what you think of Amber Heard?
I think she's an evil person, a despicable person. I don't feel she or anyone has the right to make up the kind of lies that she's making up about him. She utterly wants to destroy him, and she'll never be able to because he's very strong.
Yvonne is part of the Justice for Johnny movement, which is hell-bent on delivering on its motto. How will you feel if Johnny loses?
Nothing's going to change for me. I'll still love him as much as I do. I'll still support him. I'll be there for him if we need to pick him up or cheer him up or whatever we need to do. I'll be there. Nothing will change.
How will you feel if Johnny wins?
I'll be ecstatic. I want him to be happy, to have peace, to have tranquility, and go on with his life. That's what I hope.
Well, the reality is that the verdict in this case might be irrelevant anyway.
That cocaine, those white lines, those are cocaine. That's cocaine, right?
I would assume.
Yeah, and that's your cocaine that you kept in that box that says property of JD with the skull and crossbones, isn't it?
Well, the beautiful composition of the photograph would suggest that, certainly.
You can't say that you carried cocaine in that box?
No, but it looks like it would fit some cocaine.
All right. So just briefly, I wanted to mention, okay, it was good that they put a supporter of Johnny Depp in there, but of course they go with a fan. Now, I've got nothing against Yvonne. Good on her, and I agree with her sentiments. Johnny deserves peace. He deserves tranquility. I absolutely agree. But why not get a legal person who's on the side of Johnny Depp to give some kind of commentary or statement about this and do an interview with those people? Because then they would be able to give the other side of this court case so far, and of course of Johnny's case that he's bringing to Amber Heard, and actually show the other side of it. The truth, of course, which we're all seeing live in court right now, but instead they went with a fan. I've got nothing wrong with fans, and Yvonne seems lovely, but to go with that rather than to get another lawyer or speak to somebody unbiased, like Nick Wallace there is just absolutely going after Johnny in what he's saying, but why not show the other side? Get somebody else. I'll tell you why, because they want to stick to the narrative that Amber Heard is right, she's the victim, and they want to support her. Why? Well, that's just what the mainstream media does. But the good thing is we're getting to see all of this live.
Hollywood lawyer Christopher Melcher believes both sides are self-destructing in this unedifying spectacle. Given the amount of pretty damaging evidence that they've got to go through in the courtroom here, even if Johnny Depp wins, does he kind of still lose?
This is a problem that all celebrities and public figures face. When they feel that they're defamed, they want to fight back and clear their name. But we as legal advisors tell them that they're just bringing more attention to that statement. And sometimes it is better just to let it die, because if you sue, you bring a lot of attention to it, and then you also open yourself up to everything else. Any controversy like this is bad for their brand. It's actually toxic to their brand. They've lost control of how they are viewed.
What? Oh my gosh. That's the whole reason why Johnny's doing this. He lost control years ago of how he was viewed based on the disingenuous, false, and outright crap that Amber Heard accused him of. So he lost that power a long time ago, numbskull. And you know what else? Of course, he's going to do this. I mean, this guy seriously just said, just let it go. Just let it go. You know, it'll be worse if you try and clear your name. No, it won't. Johnny Depp needs to clear his name, not just for him, for other people in his life, other people around him. And you know what? For a broader group of people, society, we need to see true justice done and false accusers be called out for the liars that they are. So to just say, let it go, I don't think so, pal.
When you have a court case like this going on,
It's not only exposing for myself. It's exposing for my family. It's exposing for Miss Heard. It never had to go in this direction. I can't say that I'm embarrassed because I know that I'm doing the right thing.
So there you go. A very, very biased piece from 60 Minutes Australia there. I'm almost ashamed to call myself an Aussie looking at that. I mean, that is just absolutely ridiculous. The amount of bias in that segment was just insane. Now, I want to ask you this question. If you picked up on this, was there a single negative mention of Amber Heard in there? Just one little element, one little clip, one little anything that was negative. If I missed it, please let me know. But from where I sat, that was 15 minutes odd of just making out that Johnny Depp is ridiculous for bringing this lawsuit and that he's also a drunk and that he is a domestic abuser, when the exact opposite is true. Amber Heard was exposed this week by Ed White, Johnny Depp's accountant, who managed all of his funds, including paying the wine bill. Now, that wine bill was upwards of $160,000 when Amber was with Johnny, because she drank a lot of wine, he said. And do you know what that bill went to after Johnny and Amber broke up? Zero.
Very customary for us to pay everything that Mr. Depp was obligated to pay.
Are you familiar with an entity known as 2020 Wine Merchants?
Yes, I am.
Why are you familiar with it?
It's a prominent purveyor of wine in Los Angeles,
Your Honor,
California.
Foundation.
I think where we left off is I asked you, how were you familiar with 2020 Wine Merchants? And if that's not what I asked you, that's what I'm asking you now.
2020 is a highly recognized purveyor of wine in Los Angeles, along with other companies.
What involvement, if any, did you have with 2020?
I satisfied the liabilities that Mr. Depp incurred, which at the dissolve of their marriage was approximately $160,000.
Do you continue to pay Mr. Depp's wine bill?
Yes, I do. We pay all of his obligations, but his wine bill has shrunk to virtually zero because he does not consume that much in the way of wine. He's made a few gifts around Christmas time, but his wine bill has gone to virtually zero.
Are you familiar with a Spanish wine known as Vega Sicilia?
Yes.
How are you familiar with that?
I know that it is a very expensive wine, and that I know that Ms. Heard enjoyed drinking the wine.
How much does it cost?
The cost of the wine is approximately $500 a bottle.
Were you ultimately charged with paying for the wine that was served on at the birthday party on April 21, 2016?
Yes, I was. We rendered the payment for that balance.
I'll overrule the objection. It's fine.
How many bottles of Vega Sicilia were served?
At Ms. Heard's request, she ordered 5 bottles of the wine and 8 bottles of other wine, so a total of 13 bottles of wine.
Zero. Or close to zero. Johnny was not drinking. He's not actually a big drinker. So again, just one more lie. But I want to say, I want to finish on by saying this. They're making out there that it's sort of this Hollywood frivolous lawsuit that's just about Hollywood drama and all of these things. But Johnny Depp is not just doing this for himself. I mean, he is doing it for himself. He's standing up for himself, and so he should. He's innocent. He's also standing up for his family. He's standing up for all victims of domestic violence. And most importantly, in my eyes, he's standing up for justice itself.